Communication can broadly be narrowed down to 4 skills: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. These are essential skills for academic success and professional development. As a communicator, you always occupy the role of the sender or receiver, and sometimes both. When you occupy the role of the sender, you need to consider your audience and your purpose. So the audience and the purpose in communication are critical issues that every sender of a message needs to consider. Sending a message obviously implies the ability to speak and the ability to write in an academic context such as ours. And for communication to be effective, you must consider not just the message, but the audience, that is the receiver, and the purpose, the reason why you are communicating. Knowing your audience is critical to communication success. It is important for effective communication. For example, when you're communicating to a friend, you'll be informal and casual. When you're communicating to your teacher or your boss, you'll be more formal. Knowing your audience influences the style of your presentation. In academic presentations, usually the audience will understand if their background is similar to yours, and you can also afford to use technical terms. But when you have a mixed audience, all this changes. Therefore, always determine for whom you are communicating. Developing audience awareness will help to focus your presentation. Your audience may be the primary audience, those who have a direct role in responding to your speech or to your document. These may be readers who use your document to do their jobs, or they may be students listening to a career guidance session. You may also have a secondary audience, that is people who need to be aware of a particular message that you are sending, although they don't have to respond to that particular message. A secondary audience, for example, if you are sending an email, they will receive the email, but there's no need for them to respond back to you. And usually in an email, you just copy them the message that you have sent to the primary receiver. Now, there are different types of receivers of information or messages. They are in the form of readers and in the form of listeners. These could be experts, people who know the theory and the product or the service or whatever subject you are discussing inside and out. They know this in the sense that they are the ones who designed it, they tested it, and they basically know everything about it. And then you also have the technicians. These are the people now who are responsible for building and putting it together. And then you also have the executives. For example, these are the people in administrative roles who may need to be aware of the theory and the product, but not in detail. They just need information to make a decision. And then obviously you have the general readers or listeners who may not have any technical knowledge at all, but they still need to be communicated with. And there are also other types of audiences, whether they are on the listening side or on the reading side of communication. These could be your peers. You could have an international audience, or they may be mixed audiences. It is also important that when you have identified your audience, you should also analyze this audience and look at the specific characteristics that the audience brings to the communication act. For example, take into account the reader's education, their professional experience, their job responsibilities if they're working, their personal characteristics, their personal preferences, even cultural characteristics and prior knowledge that they have about a subject. Also consider attitudes and expectations. What is the reader or listener's attitude towards you? What is the reader or listener's attitude towards the subject? And what is the reader or listener's expectations from the presentation, whether it is spoken or written? Most importantly, also consider how will the reader or the listener use the speech or the document. What are their reasons for listening or reading? How should the reader or the listener, for example, approach your presentation? You have to consider their listening skills also, and even their reading skills. How good are they? Knowing your purpose is also another cardinal issue that you need to consider, and this will help you to decide the tone and the presentation strategies that you will have to use as a communicator. Your purpose can be to inform, to persuade, to entertain, to motivate. Academic communication focuses on why. Communication is usually based on 4 key activities: summarizing, analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating. So it's important that as you consider your audience and your purpose, you bear in mind that in the academic context where we are, these are the 4 primary areas in which you will be required to make an oral presentation or to write a document. Knowing your audience and purpose will help your communication to be more effective. Your listeners and readers will give you the desired feedback.